What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised. Warning. What you are about to watch may make you question everything you thought you knew. Viewer discretion is advised.
Yo, what is going on, guys? It is your boy, Cody Blake, your host of Red Tape Radio, and today we are going to discuss, is the left violent? In my opinion, they are violent. But before we dive into that, we are going to actually go over that Minnesota incident once again, because I've got a lot of people from the left that came to the video to rewatch, pretty much, that didn't see it the way that I seen it. So we will go over it live. Let me get this looked over. Let me get logged into Twitter real quick, chat. And we will go back to the video and we will rewatch it at 2 different speeds. So we're going to slow it all the way down and we're going to watch it at normal speed. Alright. Let me get this moved over, chat. Now, we can all see this, right? We can all see this. We're going to start at the very beginning. So, right here, they're all saying, yelling at the ICE officers to get out of their neighborhood. This lady is coming over here to this ICE agent, basically pestering him at this point. As we've seen from his POV, she's pestering him. He just came over here, got the license plate. Another ICE vehicle pulls up. Their lights are on at this point, right? Their lights are on. They step out. They are full uniform right now. Full uniform. This agent tells her to get out of the car. Right then and there, they are detaining her. Which, detain is to keep someone from proceeding, hold back. Keep someone in official custody is another definition. Typically for questioning about a crime or in a political sensitive situation. So right here in this scenario, they are detaining her for a crime she is committing, which is obstruction. Again, telling her to get out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. That's also what he says. She does not get out of the car. So she is non-compliant. Right here. Non-compliant. Her reverse lights are on. Let's back this up a little bit too. Let's see which way her wheels are pointed. Her wheels are pointed left. She's backing up. Right here, the officer is in front of the vehicle. Straightens her wheels. Straightens her wheels right here. So right here, they're still turned. Straightens. Spins on the ice. The officer is in front of the vehicle. And then he fires around. Fires rounds. He doesn't fire into the side. Right here, he did not fire. They all went through the windshield. Boom. Right there, he is firing. Boom, boom, boom. 4 shots within a span of a second. After she is shot, her wheels then turn. Maybe from the little bit of brain power that's still going on. Or whatever it is. But right here, her wheels are still straight until she hit him, and then her wheels finally turn. She then goes down here and crashes. We'll come back up. We'll play it at 0.3 speed. So again, her wheels are pointed left. Her brake lights or her reverse lights are on. Hitting her brakes. Her reverse lights are not on. Puts it in drive. The wheels are spinning. The wheels are spinning. Right here. Look at that. This is ice too that it's spinning on. The vehicle lunges forward at the officer who draws his service weapon. Shoots. And now she comes over here. All of these shots were in a span of a second. And keep in mind, there's an officer also attached to the vehicle as well. Right here. Boom. Right here. Again, one more time. Boom. That's the shot that kills her. He gets hit. He gets popped back. He could have easily had just fallen and got run over. Bam. Hit right there. Fires a shot as he got hit. Let's go to his POV. Let's see, can we find his POV? So this is his POV. Before the other truck has pulled up. So right here, she's waving on another vehicle. Get her smiling. She knows what she's doing. I'm not sure exactly. He might have said something along the lines of he's going to check the plates. She's saying she's not mad.
That's okay, we don't change our...
He's getting the plates right here. Let's listen to what the person that's with her says.
That's okay, we don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later.
So they know that they're going to be questioned later.
Fine. U.S. citizen, former... You want to come at us? I said go get yourself...
Again, she is coming over here, pestering the officer.
Some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
They're telling her to get out right here. He's going around to help. The car comes right at him and hits him. The car is coming dead on at him. Hits him. And then continues on into the light pole. Let's watch it full speed right here. Again, if you don't think he got hit right here by this vehicle, I don't know what you're saying that I'm not seeing. He gets hit by the vehicle. She's smiling, impeding traffic, impeding their investigation. Gets the license plate. The other officers then come up later on.
That's fine. U.S. citizen. You want to come at us? I said go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Again, they're telling her to get out of the vehicle. She even tells her to drive. He gets hit right here. Gets hit right there by this vehicle. Let's see if we can slow this down. So let's put it in playback speed 0.25. She's telling her to drive. Tell me that is not a reaction of someone that thinks they're about to be, that their life is in danger. Screaming because he knows she's coming right at him. Again, if you see something in that I did not see, I would love to hear it down in the chat. Let me know, because that is what I'm getting from that. That is what I'm getting from that video. Is she was trying to run the officer over as the vehicle is coming. He then draws his service weapon, fires a shot. Come back to it. The shot hits right in here. Bam. Right in here. Right here it hits, and hits her in the head. Or in neck area, or head neck area.
We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know.
Well, all 4 shots or in the span of a second. Like, that was still 43 seconds. For that officer, that threat was still there. Or actually 42 seconds it was in when he started firing. But all within 42 seconds, he started firing. Again, if you've seen something that I did not see within that whole interaction, let me know. But we are going to hop into some other news. I kind of went over this in one of my recent videos. Let me get it pulled up real quick for you guys.
Do these women?
Let's go ahead and react to some of this.
In strollers, or do they have them in like one of those little swings?
Sometimes they have them in strollers, but the other night I saw several small children just being walked around, and I mean these are kids that are, you know, this big.
Oh my God! And the fathers are dads there?
No fathers.
All right, so it's no dads, it's moms, and they're bringing kids. That's insane. And how cold is it? It's 9 degrees.
It's 9 degrees, pass between 8 and 9.
Do these women?
Weapons out. Showing up with weapons.
Back the fuck up!
We got all these people with the cameras. She's not complying with the officers. They've done told her to move multiple times and get out of the way.
Help that woman! Help that woman! Why don't you help someone? All you do is hurt! All you do is hurt! She's trying to drag on this fucking bridge! Where
Absolutely crazy. If she just complied, moved out of the way, they wouldn't have taken her into custody. Yes, this is one of the photos that Caroline Levitt was talking about. Writing "fuck ICE" on it. Can't read what that says right there. Something about agent. So they're throwing tear gas here because I don't know why it doesn't have the whole video, but I was watching this live when it happened. These protesters were throwing firecrackers, throwing snowballs with ice in them, all sorts of stuff. So they started throwing tear gas, trying to disperse them all. Disgraceful. They're burning stuff too? Sheesh. But in some other cities on fire, like George Floyd riots, and some 540 cities also in 2020. These are not peaceful demonstrations, but rather mass riots funded by entities in this country who hate Trump, the Democratic Party, and private interests like Soros. There is no cause for these riots if not peaceful. They show the world America is in trouble once again. I, as you, who the hell wants terrorists, rapists, robbers, illegal immigrants, or illegal criminal immigrants in this country? Get them the hell out, and that is what Trump is trying to do. And who caused this present problem but assholes Biden, Harris, and the Democratic congressional parties? In 2009, 1 million people marched in D.C. against Obamacare, and these were peaceful. The largest protest group in history, and no fires. Bedlam and hysteria. The Taxpayer March on Washington, also known as the 9/12 Tea Party. It's a Tea Party protest march from Freedom Plaza to the United States Capitol, held on 12 September 2009 in Washington, D.C.
We're watching on television.
Activists who've
But
showed
does
up
that look
with
like an
chants.
See what-
insurrection to you? That's what was just described as in this statement from a
When you've got
high-ranking
people
federal
who are
official.
showing up with the intent
You
to
won't
do
answer the
damage,
question. It looks like an insurrection.
Answering the question here.
We're
I
watching
see
on television.
activists who've
But
showed
does
up
that look
with
like an
chants.
insurrection to you?
Ask him a question.
That's what was just described as in this statement from a
When you've got
high-ranking
people
federal
who are
official.
showing up with the intent
You
to
won't
do
answer the
damage,
question.
Cuts him off while he's answering the question.
It looks like an insurrection.
Answering the question here.
You don't think they're showing up because they want to
They're
do damage?
peacefully
The people who are
protesting in
threatening.
response to a woman who was shot in the face.
No, actually, what they're doing tonight is
peaceful protesting
protesting
is
because
going to
someone
town
was
square.
arrested and then attacked an ICE agent,
Well,
and then
I guess one
does
thing
that not
they're
count?
not allowed to
That's what.
peacefully
we don't really.
You go
we
to
actually
peacefully
said-
protest in the town square. You peacefully protest with a letter to the editor. You
Are they
peacefully
committing violence
protest.
right now?
You peacefully protest by starting a
letter to
Substack
the
or
editor?
a podcast.
Starting a
You
podcast?
know,
Hold on
no,
a
wait a
second,
minute.
Brad.
You cannot
Brad,
interfere
there are
with.
a lot. We've been in this country now in the midst of protests of all forms for a long time. We have seen protests in this country that don't stop at a letter to the editor. Okay, you see in the history of this country peaceful, justified protests in which people put their lives and their bodies on the line. They leave their homes, they go and do.
No, people do not put their bodies on the line in a peaceful protest. In a peaceful protest, like the civil rights movement, they linked arms and marched from Selma to Montgomery to the Capitol building. That was a peaceful protest. Same thing with, like we were just reading, the 9/12 Tea Party protests. They all marched peacefully. They didn't throw fireworks. They didn't throw snowballs. They marched.
Something
That's a
that
protest.
Officials tell them is unlawful, sitting at a segregated counter, crossing a bridge. People have been doing that in this country for a long time. That is also
Civil disobedience is honored. It's
Listen,
honored.
civil disobedience is peaceful protest.
I find it
Civil disobedience is not peaceful protest.
ironic that the
It is.
Civil disobedience is honored in this country and always should be. That means you're
I'm
willing
just saying,
But the
I don't
definition
get
of it,
why-
Abby,
why are
goes.
we coordinating
What-
all
Who
of
is this
this?
over here?
definition of civil
That people
disobedience
can't.
is
I
that
mean, I don't know why they're showing
I'm
up
trying
at this
to- I'm
particular
trying to answer
scene.
your question.
But why are they not allowed
Then
to
ask-
show up and just say, I don't agree.
First off, you can't interfere with federal law enforcement activity, and it's a violation of Minnesota.
Listen to that one more time. Where's it at?
And it's a violation of Minnesota state. First off, you can't interfere with federal law enforcement
You cannot interfere with federal law enforcement
activity. And it's a violation
activities.
of Minnesota state law if your interference with that activity causes someone who's guilty of something or being pursued to get away. Let's go back. Hold on. Civil dis-
They interrupted both of them so many times. That's crazy. This is one of the fireworks. Antifa terrorists attack ICE agents with mortar-style fireworks in Minnesota. That could potentially harm one of those officers, dude. Let's go over to YouTube. Look at YouTube. See what YouTube's got going on. Oh, this is 4 hours ago. Let's react to this. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. How we doing?
All right.
So, I want to thank the law enforcement officers behind me for being here. I'll answer a few questions, but I want to say just a few things at the outset, just about what I've learned today and what I'm trying to do here. You know, first of all, I want to give a shout out to
Why
the
is it doing that?
Annunciation school shooting families, because the last time I was in Minneapolis, it was of course to meet with some of those families. I understand that a couple of the students have made near miraculous recoveries, and just that was a very special moment for me to be invited into that community at a time of grief. And I hope that all of them know that though I didn't get to see them this particular time, I've been thinking about them and their families quite a bit. Now, to talk about what I am here to do, which is federal law enforcement to enforce our immigration laws, I want to say just a few things. First of all, I wanted to meet with business leaders, with ICE officers, with local law enforcement to try to understand a little bit better what's going on, so that we can tone down the temperature a little bit, reduce the chaos, but still allow us as a federal government to enforce the American immigration laws. That is the purpose of my visit. Now, this is step 1 or step 2 of that process. There's going to be a lot of work that follows through from here. I'm happy to talk about that, but I think I learned a few things that were very important. So number one of the things I learned is that the guys behind me are doing an incredible job, and frankly, a lot of the media is lying about the job that they do every single day.
Yeah, they are. They're making these guys out to be the bad guys, bro.
It doesn't mean that there aren't occasionally stories out there, there aren't occasionally videos out there that suggest that these guys, or at least some of the people who work for them, are not doing everything right. But very often, if you look at the context of what's going on, you understand that these people are under an incredible amount of duress, an incredible amount of chaos, and because of a few very far left agitators, a lot of these guys are unable to do their jobs without being harassed, without being doxxed, and sometimes without being insulted. That's totally...
Yeah, and that right there is causing the most trouble. Harassing them, doxing them, because they're not able to do their jobs. Stuff that they've been doing since 2003. They didn't have any problems under Obama, when Obama deported 409,000 immigrants. They didn't have any problems under Biden, but all of a sudden they have problems now with letting them do their jobs.
Unacceptable. And that's one of the things that I want to send a message to is, yes, come out and protest me, protest our immigration policy, but do it peacefully. If you assault a law enforcement officer, the Trump administration and the Department of Justice is going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
That means don't throw fireworks at these officers in the back. Don't throw fireworks at them. Don't throw snowballs with ice in them. If you're going to protest, link arms. Hold up signs. Throwing things at them, impeding their investigations, that's not protest.
And I wanted to show some support for these guys who, frankly, are operating in a very, very tough environment. I heard a lot of stories today about that I think drives home just how chaotic the environment on the ground here has already gotten. For example, did you know that within the last, I think, a week or so, maybe even more recently than that, you've had a couple of ICE officers who were off duty, who have been doxxed online, who were sitting and having a meal at a restaurant in Minneapolis when a bunch of agitators showed up, locked the door, made them feel like they were in danger for their lives, and then, of course, it was federal law enforcement officers who had to come up, lower the temperature on the situation, and actually get those two off-duty officers to a point of safety.
But yeah, they're gonna say it's peaceful in the name of peaceful protests, making those officers fear for their lives.
Now imagine, if you would, your life and your perspective on law enforcement if you can't even go to a restaurant without some agitators locking the door and making you feel like your life is in danger. That is the environment that has been created, I think, by a lot of very, frankly, far-left people, but also by some of the state and local law enforcement officials who could do a much better job in cooperating and working. And by the way, I'm not talking about the cops, who these guys told me on the ground, the cops are very sympathetic to what they're dealing with. I'm talking about the state.
Yeah, it makes sense that cops are very sympathetic because they know exactly what they're going through. Because they have to do the exact same job, just on a smaller scale. These guys are going into different states, taking out criminal immigrants that have murdered, raped not just women, children, maybe in some cases even men.
And local elected law enforcement officials who could do a lot better job in making their lives a little bit easier, and in the process they would make the lives of all Minneapolis residents easier, and that's what we want. We want to be able to enforce the immigration laws on the one hand, while on the other hand, we want to make sure that people in Minneapolis are able to go about their day. And I want to say just one last point on this. So I heard from a business leader today who told me a very tough story, and I think so much of what's gone wrong in Minneapolis is people not trying to understand the perspective of somebody else. Try to understand what somebody else is experiencing, whether they're a law enforcement officer or anybody in the community here in Minneapolis. So they told me a story about this manufacturing facility where an illegal immigrant was being arrested, and as these employees are going into the manufacturing facility, all of a sudden an illegal immigrant shows up, they don't know it's an illegal immigrant, and then a bunch of ICE officers descend. Now these people just want to go to work, they want to go to work safely, and now all of a sudden there's a major law enforcement operation happening right outside their place of business. Now from one perspective, I certainly understand why a business leader or why an employee would say, whoa, what's going on? It's a little scary no matter your position in life if a bunch of cop cars show up and they're arresting somebody.
That's how ICE has always been, though. They always do their operations as they're going into work, because it's the easiest way to get them.
Now, the additional context is that we know that people online have been encouraging illegal immigrants that one way they can evade arrest is by showing up at a legitimate place of business, making it impossible for these guys to actually enforce our immigration laws. So while I can understand the perspective of somebody who doesn't want to see an arrest happen at their place of work, I can also understand the perspective of our immigration enforcement officers who have to do their job and can't allow a heckler's veto over our immigration enforcement.
Yeah,
And so much of what's gone wrong is the failure to do that. And here's the point. We can do a good job of enforcing our immigration laws without the chaos, but it actually requires the cooperation of state and local officials. If you look at blue cities and blue states, red cities and red states, you go to Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee, you go to the state of Texas, obviously a very red state, or the state of Tennessee, a very red state, but you've got blue cities within those states, you do not have this level of chaos. The reason why things have gotten so out of hand is because of failure of cooperation between the state and local authorities and what these guys are trying to do.
what we should do is pull all the agents out of the blue cities. And hear me out. Pull all the agents out of the blue cities. That all the illegal immigrants move back over into those blue cities, blue states, start causing havoc again, while ICE is cleaning up the red states, the red cities. Get those cleaned up, and then we'll see a difference. And when we see that difference, they're gonna be like, well, what about these blue cities? There's a whole bunch of crime over here, all this. Let's do that. Do all that, and I promise you we will see a different result.
We have a ton of resources, a ton of ICE agents in this city right now that I would rather us not have. I'd love to send those guys home. They're not even doing targeted immigration enforcement. They are trying to protect ICE officers who are doing immigration enforcement, because when a crowd surrounds them and these guys call 911, the local officials, the local cops have been told now. So we have people here who aren't.
Wait, what did he say? It cut out.
We have a ton of resources, a ton of ICE agents in this city right now that I would rather us not have. I'd love to send those guys home. They're not even doing targeted immigration enforcement. They are trying to protect ICE officers who are doing immigration enforcement, because when a crowd surrounds them and these guys call 911, the local officials, the local cops have been told now. So we have people here.
Oh, it's cutting out by itself over there.
Enforcement. They're doing force protection, so that if a rioter tries to ruin the life or assault an ICE officer, they're actually protected. Now, why doesn't it make more sense for the local cops to get involved in that situation? Why not just have the mayor or the local official?
Because they're being told not to help out these guys, or their job will be on the line. That's why.
Tell the police officers, you know what? If an ICE officer is being assaulted by a far-left agitator, you are invited. You should actually help them. That's what would work out in any normal situation, and that's what happens in nearly every jurisdiction, red or blue, in the United States of America. The reason it hasn't happened here is because the local authorities have been told, stand down. Do not help ICE. Promote the violence, promote the agitation, but don't do anything to lower the temperature and lower the chaos. That's a problem. Here's another example of how the lack of cooperation between state and local officials makes it harder for us to do our job.
And because they're not willing to help out, to let these officers do their jobs, more people are going to get hurt. I promise you, more people will get hurt than less people.
And turns up the temperature. Let's say, for example, we have a criminal migrant who is a sex offender. And let's say that we've got to go and arrest that person who, Democrat or Republican, wants a sex offender living in their community, I would assume, I would hope.
I hope no one, bro. I hope no one.
Most people don't. But because they're an illegal alien, we don't know their last address. We may have known their address 3 years ago, but we don't know their address now. What we'd like to do is talk to local officials and say, you know what, according to the Medicaid rolls, where was the last address this person was domiciled? Or according to a SNAP application, a food stamps application, maybe that could give us insight to where this person is today. Or maybe they had some local court trouble. We could go to the courthouse or even the local jail and try to find where this criminal sex offender is today. The local authorities have been told, do not cooperate. So these guys are trying to go out and enforce the law. They're trying to arrest sex offenders, but they're trying to do it in an environment where local officials have been told, do not help them, do not provide intelligence about where these sex offenders might be. This is disgraceful. And there are a lot of things that all of us could do better to lower the temperature, but the number one thing that I learned today is the best way to facilitate reasonable enforcement of the law, but also to lower the chaos in Minneapolis, would be for state and local officials to cooperate. Now, I will say, on one final positive note, I actually think that there's some hope, some reason to think that there's going to be better cooperation in the weeks and months to come. I think that because I've talked to some of the local officials here, I think there are reasons to believe that these people are going to step up and actually ask the cops to protect our ICE officers when they're being assaulted, who are going to ask the local courts to cooperate with getting criminal sex offenders out of our community. That's a good
I hope so.
thing. That's the good news, and that's something I'm going to work on when I get back to Washington. But please, if you're a local official, if you're the mayor of this town, if you have any influence over those people, just tell them to cooperate. Because we could have immigration enforcement operate as smoothly and without the chaos that we see in Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee, or even rural parts of the state of Minnesota. All we need is a little cooperation. I guarantee we're going to do the best to be professional, to respect people's rights, to not do anything that we don't have to do in order to enforce immigration laws, but it would make our lives a lot easier, it would make our officers a lot safer, and it would make Minneapolis much less chaotic if we had a little bit of cooperation from the state and local officials. With that, I'll shut up and take some questions. Thank you, guys.
If they can get the state and local authorities to cooperate and help out so they can get a lot of those ICE agents back home with their families, helping out with other cities, other states, this will make everything so much smoother. Again, it doesn't make any sense for me why they're not able to do their jobs right now, because they were able to do it since 2003 up until now. So leave these guys alone. Let them do their jobs. And let's go ahead and continue this video.
A local school district here is alleging ICE agents detaining a 5-year-old after preschool on Tuesday. We've also seen multiple American citizens detained by ICE in the last 6 weeks. Are you
Already heard one part. They're detaining U.S. citizens because they're impeding their investigation, bro. It's a crime. They can arrest U.S. citizens for committing a crime in front of them.
Well, I'm proud of the fact that we're standing behind law enforcement, and I'm proud of the fact that we're enforcing the country's laws. But, you asked a question about this 5-year-old kid. I actually saw this terrible story while I was coming to Minneapolis. We just left Toledo, Ohio this morning for an economic messaging event. And I see the story, and I'm a father of a 5-year-old, actually, a 5-year-old little boy, and I think to myself, oh my God, this is terrible. How did we arrest a 5-year-old? Well, I do a little bit more follow-up research. And what I find is that the 5-year-old was not arrested, that his dad was an illegal alien, and then when they went to arrest his illegal alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old. Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? Are they not supposed to arrest an illegal alien in the United States of America? If the argument is that you can't arrest people who have violated our laws because they have children, then every single parent is going to be completely given immunity from ever being the subject of law enforcement. That doesn't make any sense. No one thinks that makes any sense. Now, you know, there are so many of these cases like that where if you just understand the context, there have been a number of situations that I've looked into personally where I say, wait a second, we don't want ICE arresting American citizens. They're supposed to be enforcing the immigration laws against illegal aliens. So then I look into it and I find out that the American citizen who was arrested took a swing at an ICE officer. You can't have that happen. And of course they have to defend themselves. And of course they have the right to detain somebody who assaults a law enforcement officer. Now, this is my point. Do we want these things to happen? Do we want these arrests to be so chaotic? No, we don't. These guys want it least of all, but if we had a little cooperation from local and from local and state officials, I think the chaos would go way down in this community.
You're right, 100% right.
After the Renee Good shooting, sir, the administration seemed to suggest...
Yeah, well, you can go next.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you pointed it out.
No, it's fine. I'll take both.
After the Renee Good shooting, sir, the administration seemed to... After the Renee Good shooting, the administration seemed to suggest that ICE officers enjoyed near complete immunity. But today you told the Washington Examiner that when appropriate, the administration might take disciplinary actions against ICE agents. So is that a change of opinion? And if so, why the change of tone?
No, I didn't say, and I don't think any other official within the Trump administration said that officers who engaged in wrongdoing would enjoy immunity. That's absurd. What I did say is that when federal law enforcement officers violate the law, that is typically something that federal officials would look into. We don't want these guys to have kangaroo courts. We want them to actually have real due process, real investigation, because again, sometimes they're accused of wrongdoing, and it turns out when you learn the context, they didn't actually do anything wrong. But of course we're going to investigate these things. Of course we're investigating the Renee Good shooting, but we're investigating them in a way that respects people's rights and that ensures that if somebody did something wrong, yes, they're going to face disciplinary action, but we're not going to judge them in the court of public opinion. I've spoken at length on this particular case. I think they're...
If you judge people by public opinion, he'd be gone. Because so many Democrats want him thrown in prison and whatnot because he just quote-unquote shot her. He murdered her, even though he's defending his life from her trying to run over him. We just watched it just a little bit ago.
Good's death is a tragedy. I also think that she rammed an ICE officer with her car. So the tragedy here is multi-layered. The tragedy is there was a misunderstanding. The tragedy is that Renee Good lost her life. The tragedy is that you have ICE officers who are going into communities where they're worried that if they call 911, no one's going to come to help them. That is what produces this terrible situation, and it's something state and local officials here in Minnesota could solve. Yes, sir. Well, you know, it is a shame that kids have to get caught up in this. I am speaking at March for Life tomorrow. I'm pro-life, and I'm very excited to speak there. I want to talk about local law enforcement, but, you know, I mean, look, I am, as a child, I saw people in my family get arrested. It's terrible. It's heartbreaking, it's chaotic, it's traumatic for the kids. I can recognize that, and I can recognize that we got to support these kids, while on the other hand saying that just because you're a parent doesn't mean that you get complete immunity from law enforcement.
No, that'd be like a drunk driver going out, hitting somebody, killing kids and everything, and he's got a kid at home and getting immunity because he has kids. It's absurd.
To hold both of those thoughts in our head at the same time. We've got to be sympathetic to the kids who are caught up in some of these enforcement actions. We've also got to say we have to enforce the law without bias, with fairness, but we've got to enforce the law.
Mr. Vice President!
Chill, that's so loud.
You said there was an altercation in St. Cloud. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the takeaways. I've talked with these guys before we came on the stage, but during our roundtable and some of the other conversations we've had, communication, we absolutely want to ensure there's good communication between federal officials, and state and local officials, and I'm sure that we can do better on that. We absolutely want to make sure that we are communicating, but that also requires a two-way street, and that's the point that I make about state and local officials. These guys will absolutely communicate with state and local officials. They'll tell people if they have to do an enforcement operation in a particular municipality, but part of that is they also want to ensure that if they're communicating about their whereabouts, that's not being used as a weapon against them. Sometimes they tell people where they're going, and then they find out that their agents' faces are on the, on Reddit or on some social media thread saying, here's this guy, we know he's going to be at this place at this exact time. So that communication has got to be...
And that could possibly put a threat to their life as well.
Be a two-way street. These guys are going to communicate with business leaders, with local officials, with state officials. We also need the local officials and state officials to do a good job of protecting people when they're in their communities. We're not asking, by the way, we don't want any police officer in this community, in this state, to help us do immigration enforcement. We've got that. But if a protester shows up and that protester turns violent against our immigration officers, we really, really need the cooperation of our local partners. We haven't gotten it yet, but I think if we do, we really can lower the temperature. Yeah. Yeah, so I saw that story, and the story is like so much that I read in the mainstream media. It's missing a whole lot of context, and when you appreciate the context, it makes sense.
The media needs to do way better. Like, completely cutting stuff out, not showing stuff, changing stuff in some cases. Like, that needs to be stopped. That is misinformation at its finest, and that should be illegal.
No one is saying, look, there are exceptions. For example, a crazy exception, if somebody is fired at from inside a house, they don't need a warrant to go inside that person's house. There are very narrow exceptions to the warrant requirement where law enforcement officers don't need a warrant if, for example, they're an imminent threat of their lives. But what we've said and what ICE has proposed, what the Department of Homeland Security really has proposed in the Department of Justice, is that we can get administrative warrants to enforce administrative immigration law. Now, it's possible, I guess, that the courts will say no, and of course, if the courts say no, we would follow that law, but nobody is talking about doing immigration enforcement without a warrant. We're talking about different types of warrants that exist in our system. Typically what happens, not always, but typically in the immigration system, those are handled by administrative law judges. So we're talking about getting warrants from those administrative law judges. And then of course, with other cases, you get judges or you get warrants from a judge. That's very consistent with the practice of American law. I'm sure the courts will weigh in on that, but we're never gonna enter somebody's house without some kind of a warrant, unless of course, somebody's firing on an officer or they have to do something in order to protect themselves. Go ahead. Well, our understanding is that you can enforce the immigration laws of the country under an administrative order if you have an administrative warrant. That's what we think. That's our understanding of the law. That's our best faith attempt to understand the law. Again, this is something courts will weigh in on. I won't speak to that. But yes, most immigration law in our country is not done through the criminal system with the judge. It's done through the administrative law system. We're going to continue that practice just as they did in the Biden administration or any other administration. I did not talk to him today. I talked to some of his colleagues. Your question on the Insurrection Act is interesting. I've tried to understand this as well as I possibly could. And my understanding is what the Insurrection Act, what invoking the Insurrection Act would allow the federal government to do, is that it would allow the federal government to use the military for local law enforcement operations. Right now, we don't think that we need that. Now, the president could change his mind. Of course, things could get worse. But right now, we think that federal law enforcement officers can do the job of federal law enforcement. Now, what I do...
He threatens to use the Insurrection Act to try to get them to comply, try to get them to work with these ICE agents, these federal law enforcement officers, to make it easier on them to make these arrests. We see it with the Greenland deal, or getting Greenland, right? He threatened military power force to take Greenland. That's just to get a deal. So many presidents have done that throughout history.
Worry about again is if the chaos gets worse, if more and more ICE agents start getting assaulted, if other law enforcement officers start getting assaulted, that would be a real problem. But again, we have so much federal law enforcement resources here right now. We have so many people here that we do not want to have here. I do not want so many ICE officers in Minneapolis right now. I mean, it's really, really freaking cold outside. But they're here not even to enforce immigration laws, but to protect the people from the rioters. That's an absurd state of affairs, and we wouldn't need it if we had a little bit more cooperation from the Minneapolis Police Department. Again, the Minneapolis Police Department, my understanding is that the actual beat cops on the ground, they would love to help out, but they're being told by somebody, I don't know if it's Mayor Frey, they're being told by somebody not to cooperate at all. What kind of a person tells their local police don't protect somebody if they're being assaulted by a rioter? It's crazy, and it's got to stop. Yes?
Earlier this week, local law enforcement accused federal agents of racial profiling. Why are there so many U.S. citizens being caught up in these operations?
Well, I think your question assumes something that's not necessarily in evidence, which is that when there are American citizens who have been caught up in some of these enforcement operations, very often it is people who have assaulted a law enforcement officer. They're not being arrested because they violated the immigration laws. They're being arrested because they punched a federal law enforcement officer. That is a totally reasonable thing. Now, to the accusation of racial profiling, look, it's something that we take very seriously. We will take accusations of racial profiling back to Washington. We'll certainly look into them as they come up. But this is not a group that's going around and looking for people who violated the law based on skin color.
They're trying to say that because everybody says they're targeting black and brown people, which they're not. They're 100% not. There was like what I think 48,000 white appearing illegal immigrants they've arrested so far. Out of 250,000.
People who violated the actual law, the law of our immigration system in this country. And so long as we had more cooperation, I think they could do these things in a much more targeted way. They would actually know where some of the bad guys are. I mean, again, you hear things that are hard to believe, but I've confirmed that they are true. Sex offenders who we're trying to get off the streets, who the local officials won't tell us their last known address. So then the local officials say, oh my God, these guys are doing widespread targeted enforcement operations, when in reality, we would love to just go to one house. The local officials won't tell us which one house to go to.
Mr. Vice President. To that question, the local police chiefs have said their own off-duty officers, so police officers, are being targeted because they are a person of color and asked to show their papers. Is that...
You get asked to show documents when you go buy alcohol, when you get pulled over, when you go to court, literally anything, bro. Why does it matter if they're being asked to show papers?
A concern of the administration and the Department of Homeland Security is local law enforcement says their own officers are being targeted, and they describe it as, quote, civil rights violations in our streets.
So I saw one story about this and one local police officer who said this, and look, certainly is it a concern? Absolutely. The first thing we have to figure out is whether it happened or not, and then if it happened, whether there is a good explanation or a bad explanation. And of course, if somebody violated the law, if somebody racially profiled, if somebody violated the rights of one of our fellow citizens, that is something we will take very seriously. What I also would say is that many of the most viral stories of the past couple of weeks have turned out to be, at best, partially true. So we want to try people based on reality.
Again, that needs to stop.
Truth, based on context. We're not
Partially true news needs to stop.
Social media story that turned out to be half false.
Mr. Vice President.
Quick question. About the roundtable that happened, did you invite anybody with an opposing point of view to get an idea of why people are upset here? It's just a quick follow-up. Have you reached out to Governor Walz at all in an attempt to turn down the
So I haven't talked to Governor Walz on this particular trip. A number of members of our administration, I believe our chief of staff, spoke to the governor and has been in constant contact with his staff over the past week. We've been in my office in constant contact with people here on the ground in Minneapolis. There were certainly people at our roundtable with opposing views, and look, I don't even know, whether it's public, but yes, we met with people with opposing views here at the roundtable. I wanted to get a perspective from everybody, but also, of course, offer my opinion that with a little bit more cooperation, we could lower the chaos. We're going to keep on doing that. If Governor Walz wants to call me, we'll absolutely continue talking. I will say that my sense of this situation, having talked to these guys for a long time, is this is primarily a law enforcement issue. This is the Attorney General. This is the local mayor. This is all of the organs of local and state law enforcement. That's who we focus on, but we've certainly been in communication with the governor and his office as well.
Vice President.
Yeah.
Local law enforcement obviously hasn't been really helping out with the agents who've been assaulted repeatedly. What's the plan if nothing changes there here locally and this operation has attracted thousands of agents? Are there any plans to go into any other cities from here?
Well, right now we're focused on Minneapolis because that's where we have the highest concentration of people who have violated our immigration laws, and that's also, frankly, where we see the most assault of our law enforcement officers. Our plan is very simple. If you assault a federal law enforcement officer, we're going to do everything that we can to put you in prison. It's very simple. And most of these protesters, as much as I may disagree with their politics, most of them have been peaceful, but a lot of them have not been peaceful. And if you go and storm a church, if you go and insult a federal law enforcement officer, we're going to try very hard. We're going to use every resource of the federal government to put you in prison. Respect people's rights. Respect people's rights to worship. Respect people's rights to do their job without being assaulted. If you follow that basic principle, the Trump administration is going to do everything that we can to protect your rights. But if you go after somebody, if you assault somebody, if you make a 9-year-old girl cry because you walked into her church and harassed her, we're going to go after you with every single tool that we have.
Vice President.
That, I like that. That was good.
Your administration has said repeatedly this is about safety, about making Americans feel safer. So what do you say to people here in Minnesota who say it's the overwhelming presence of ICE officers and federal officers and their tactics that are making them feel better?
Well, one thing I would say, first of all, we saw in 2025 the biggest one-year drop in murders in the history of the United States of America. Significant reductions in violent crime. The reason why we have less violent crime is really two reasons. Number one, because we're enforcing the immigration laws and getting very violent criminals out of our country. And number two, because we're enforcing our criminal laws and putting guys who assault and murder behind bars. This is part of a broad effort to make us safe. And the chaos that people are seeing, and I understand there is frustration of the chaos, I'd say that we're doing everything that we can to lower the temperature, and we would like federal and state and local officials to meet us halfway.
Receiving it correctly. Are you saying that they're not seeing that it's the tactics or the presence of the officers that
Look, I'm sure that people are seeing a lot of things that would make any member of our national community feel very upset, but I also think that if you understand this in context, this is the inevitable consequence of a state and local government that have decided that they're not going to cooperate with immigration enforcement at all. In fact, they're going to aggressively not cooperate. So here's a basic illustration of this. If you are an ICE officer and you have to arrest a person who's committed assault and is also an illegal alien, but the state and local officials won't help you identify that person, many of the things that people in Minneapolis are seeing that give them pause, that frustrate them, that worry them, that make them feel like things are too chaotic, many of these things are coming from the fact that there's no cooperation with state and local law enforcement. And I guess what I would tell
And that's what's making their job so hard. Two is they don't know where these guys are because they're not cooperating. Like, American citizens are getting scared. They're like, why are they searching all these homes for illegal immigrants? Are they going to search my home next? Just because the local state officials won't cooperate with these guys.
People, again, many of whom are justifiably concerned and worried about what they're seeing in their communities is, why are we not seeing it anywhere else? We're seeing this level of chaos only in Minneapolis. LA and Chicago, we had some problems there. Pretty much every jurisdiction where these guys are operating, you don't see the same level of chaos. You don't see the same level of violence.
And they're operating mostly in those cities because they're sanctuary cities.
You don't see the problems that we're seeing in Minneapolis. Maybe the problem is unique to Minneapolis, and we believe that it is. And it's the lack of cooperation between state and local law enforcement and federal law enforcement. Sir.
ICE has been operating here for years with less pushback than we're seeing right now. And even the St. Paul police chief recently said, is there not a way to find common ground without scaring the hell out of people in the community? Those were his words. And I just want
Yeah, there is common ground. Work with the federal officers, these federal agents. Work with them. That's common ground.
this operation Metro Surge, is any part of it meant to send leaders here in Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota? And I know you talked about you've been in touch with the governor's offices, the mayor's offices, but why have you not been able to speak to them directly? Have they not been willing to do so?
Well, look, I have spoken to some of the people in Minnesota directly. I spoke to some of them today. I've spoke to others in the past. And again, our staff has been in very direct contact with pretty much every official with any influence or any power in Minneapolis. But no, we're not trying to send a political message. We're trying to enforce the law. And unfortunately, what has happened is that as we've enforced the law, there's been this weird reaction, again, unique to this city. This is not a common thing across the United States of America. There's been a very unique, very Minneapolis-specific reaction to our enforcement of federal immigration laws. What I'm trying to do here today is understand why that is. What is it about Minneapolis that has become so chaotic? What are the specific types of cooperation that we need? Look, I don't need Tim Walz or Jacob Frey or anybody else to come out and say that they agree with J.D. Vance or Donald Trump on immigration. I just don't need that. What I do need them to do is empower their local officials to help our federal officials out in a way where this can be a little bit less chaotic and it can be a little bit more targeted. Like if we're trying to find a sex offender, tell us where the guy lives. Simple things like that, simple changes in how they're approaching immigration enforcement would make this work a lot better. It would make Minneapolis' streets a lot safer, and it would make this whole thing a lot less traumatic for this community. I'll take one more question.
Mr. Vice President.
Go ahead.
You said that it's time to turn down the temperature. Does that include changes to both ICE and CBP tactics that we've seen employed on the streets, including less than lethal tactics, pepper spray, pepper balls? Beyond that, what?
They're not gonna stop using pepper grenades, pepper balls, until these guys stop trying to assault and harm them with throwing a punch at them or throwing fireworks or snowballs with ice in it. Like, they're not gonna stop using that until they stop getting assaulted.
Yeah, look, if I was going to list the 5 agencies locally and statewide that I'm most worried about, I wouldn't put the Department of Corrections on that list. I think that
Yeah, any Department of Corrections is going to do their job, because they deal with these guys on a daily basis. Like the correctional facility I work at, there's a lot of illegal immigrants there, and I can tell you some of these guys are not good guys at all.
while there are certain things we'd like to see more from them, they've hardly been the worst offenders. You agree with that, guys? That's a fair assessment. But I think you talked about tactics and you talked about the response to things. Look, we don't want to employ tactics that.
And I'll say this too: most of them, a lot of them probably only hold them too, because when you're going through like the list, like for when they're getting released, a lot of times they'll have like a hold for another thing. So like sometimes they can have a hold for another state, they can have a hold for federal, U.S. Marshals, shit like that.
We don't want to employ the kind of tactic.
And then they'll be waiting there too when they come out. They'll be waiting right there, slap handcuffs on them in another vehicle onto the next destination.
That are only necessary when violence is committed against officers. That is these guys' directive, and that's what we're going to try to do. And again, the president said this a couple of days ago. Whenever you have a law enforcement operation, even if 99.99% of the guys do everything perfectly, you're going to have people that make mistakes. That is the nature of law enforcement. What I do think that we can do is, working with state and local officials, we can make the worst moments of chaos much less common, and all they've got to do is meet us halfway. These guys want to communicate with them. They want to talk to the local business leaders. Many of these guys, many of the people standing behind me are members of the Minneapolis community. Many of the officials that I met today who work in federal immigration enforcement, this is their home. They love this place. These are their neighbors. They want this to work a lot more smoothly. I think that we can get there. We just got to work at it a little bit, and we need some cooperation from state and local officials. Last thing that I'll say is I just hope they give it. This is a beautiful city. I've only been here a few times. I love it, even in this weather. I love Minneapolis. We could do a lot better. We could do a lot more with more cooperation. The Trump administration, the directive that I got from the President of the United States is meet these guys halfway. Work with them so that we can make these immigration enforcement operations successful without endangering our ICE officers.
That right there is him trying to get a deal. A compromise. And everybody's screwed, it's a compromise.
And so that we can turn down the chaos a little bit, at least. I think a lot, actually. But for us to do that, we need some help from the state and local officials. We will keep on working with them, and so long as they're willing to work with us, they will always find a partner in public safety and law enforcement in the Trump administration. Thank you all.
Alright. With that, guys, let me know what you think. Do you think he is right? They need to cooperate more, help these federal ICE agents, ICE officers out with the immigration laws, getting these people, these illegal immigrants out of the country. If you don't agree, tell me why. I'd love to know. Without further ado, we're gonna head on out of here, and we're gonna end the stream for tonight.